Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. The reactor has mentioned that this song has been performed live with a variety of different arrangements and even performances themselves, the ways that the songs are delivered by Joanna Newsom. And so, while originally picking one song, one rendition for me to react to, they ended up requesting a second and wanted them in the same video. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at a solo rendition and then a larger orchestrated rendition. It does come from Eric. They say the solo version stands out because Newsom's harp playing is especially ferocious. You won't want to miss a second as she narrates the blind, fumbling, and decadent, unheroic journey of a hungry, dancing bear and a greedy, organ-grinding monkey. So, that's what we're going to be looking at today. The way that I have this planned is we will listen to this solo version of it. We will discuss it, look at the lyrics, see if we can't get a gist of what's going on, and then we'll explore the larger orchestrated one. So, let's dive into this, see what Joanna Newsom is bringing to the table with Monkey and Bear.
Isn't me tooting all the time. Life just passes you by. Let's be real about this. Hold on. We're okay. Down in the green hay, where monkey and bear usually lay, they woke from a stable boy's cry. Said someone come quick, the horses got loose, got racing. They'll founder, they never die. What is now known by the sorrel and the roan, by the chestnut and the bay and the gelding gray. It is stay by the gate you were given and remain in your place for your season and have the overfed dead bud. Listen to the high fence.
Ooh, a little bit of darkness coming in there.
Did you hear that bear said monkey would get out of your favorite square? They left the gate open wide. So, my bride, here is my hand, where is your heart? Try and understand my plan, Ursula. My heart is a furnace, full of love, it's just an earnest. Now you know that we must all learn this. Allegiance to a life of service and no longer to that harness.
Very typical Joanna thing to do is just have like a one-bar idea and loop it over and over and over with new lyrics.
But Ursula, we got to eat something and not keep while still within the borders of the lands that vanish girded or double-bolted and tight-fisted until we reach the open country of steeped in milk and honey. Will you keep your fancy clothes on for me? Can you bear a little longer to wear them?
Unfortunately, the audio on this is not great. I'm trying my best to hear some details, but it's tough.
But for now, dance, darling. Come on, will you dance, my darling? Oh, darling, there's a place for us. Can we go before I turn to dust? Oh, my darling, there's a place for us.
Fun syncopation in this section.
Oh, darling, come on, will you dance, my darling? Oh, the hills are rolling with excess, like a table, ceaselessly big sadness. My darling, and again.
I wonder it's because I haven't seen a lot of her live performances, but it's interesting to watch how she shapes her mouth to create specific almost like timbral movement within a phrase.
The snakes, they get much farther than the snow that left. 2 more away, they'd stop for tea. But walk a little faster and don't look backwards. Your feast is to the east, which lies then past the pasture. When the blackbirds hear you whistling, they rise and glad. Their applause cause the kettle black, and we can't have none of that.
It's interesting how she's mixing a little bit of classical with folk. And even kind of taking touches of like children's lullabies.
But still, they had got to pay the bills, hadn't they? That is what the monkeys say. So, with the courage of a groundhog or a kite, you can tie that its tether in a dun brown gown of fur and a jerky with swans down in leather. They would sway on the hind legs, the organ would cry and plays a song for the pleasure of the children would see. Throw coins at their feet, then coiling in terror, sing, dance, darling. Come on, will you dance, my darling? Oh, darling, there is a place for us. Can we go before
The uplift here,
to dust?
but it never completely removes that darkness underneath.
Oh, darling, come on, will you dance, boy, darling? You keep your eyes fixed on the highest hill where you never after read your fiddle. My darling, dear mine, if you dance, dance, darling, and I love you still. Deep in the night, shouldn't my sweetie night, where the monkey shouldered his lamb. Someone they told him the man been wandering a fair piece away from where they were camped. Someone they told him the man been sneaking away to the seaside caverns to bathe. And the boy troubled the monkey, for he was afraid of spelunking down in those caves. Or something afraid what the village people would say if they saw the bear in that stick. Rolling and splashing and seething, well, it seemed irrational, really, washing that face, washing that battered and fleeing, melted some seas, which I all kept dripping with pride. The monkey just laughed and he wondered when she comes back, cause I know to be bursting with pride. Till I jump up, saying you've been a ruining monk, saying you smell garbage.
I like that rhythmic movement there. It's a constant pulse, but there's modulation to it. I don't know that I have a lot to say about the song itself yet. I'm hoping that when we listen to the larger orchestrated version, more layers hopefully will be in there, and possibly even a little bit more clarity of the notes themselves. I think the only moment I really got there to hear some of the composition itself was in that final 10 seconds. The vocals and the largeness of them weren't as dominating, and it was beautiful. I loved it. I tried to pick up on some other things in it, but generally, as the song goes, as far as the music of the harp, it kind of just sounds like, I don't know, like a lullaby, like a folk song. It's a nice, moving melody, never really playing straight chords, just kind of giving us these moving chord shapings. There are some rhythmic elements in there we're going to talk about in a second, but like I said, as far as what the harp is playing, pitch wise, I don't really get a story out of it. It's a nice atmosphere for the vocal melody to sit upon. But I do have a lot to talk about the performative side of this. Some things that I've probably said before about Joanna Newsom, and some things that I've kind of felt but didn't have the words to vocalize. Watching this was actually quite wild. First of all, there are a lot of words in here. This song was about 8.5 minutes, maybe, after we take off the preparing for the song at the beginning of the video. Aside from those last 10 to 15 seconds, there are no moments without vocals in it. This is what I've kind of felt in the past. Joanna writes incredibly lyrically deep songs. Every time that we've had a Joanna Newsom song on the channel, other than the first one because I didn't know what I was getting into yet, I've kind of dreaded getting into the lyrical side of things. It's just incredibly dense, not just from the fact that there are a lot of words, but also from the perspective that very little of it is ever told straightforwardly. It's always dripping in metaphor. There's layers upon layers to her poetry. It's intimidating. Always has been. It's the part that I find the least, I don't want to say fun, because I do like the puzzle of trying to figure out what she's trying to say, but it's the one that I feel the least equipped for. And listening to this song really puts that into perspective. Just how often she's singing, but also how many syllables she gets out every minute. And something dawned on me. And I'm going to tie this back to a couple of weeks ago, but it feels like her vocal melodies are written for a harp, and she just happened to decide to sing them rather than play them. A lot of the way that she plays her harp is with moving passages. She occasionally adds a 2 or 3 piece harmony here and there, but for the most part, it's a string of single notes constantly moving at a fairly static pace. As I mentioned during the performance, she keeps this pulse going, and there's usually a series of, but like, yeah, she's playing 16th notes at a bit of a slower tempo. And she just keeps that going. There's some parts where she'll speed that up and throw some 30-second notes in. She doesn't really slow it down much, though. Only at the end of very lengthy passages, almost in order to put a period, a pause, a moment of saying, that was that part, now we're going to engage with this next part of the story, of the song. And vocally, it's very similar to that. And this is not something that is consistent across her works, but something I've seen enough for me to kind of notice this pattern. her vocals are the same way. They are just constantly going. I don't know if part of that is she is a harpist, and thus she writes melodies that work on a harp, so those are just what comes natural to her. So she writes the same for her vocals, or if it's a product of wanting to tell these engaging, deep stories that require so many words. I mean, it's not like she tried to cram all of this into a 3-minute song. This is a lot of words in 8.5 minutes. I mean, if she had taken her time with the vocal delivery, the poetic part of this, we'd be here for 20 minutes. So, like I said, I don't know. Maybe it's a mix of both. Maybe she enjoys writing melodies like this, and she has a lot to say, so she says it quickly. But I do find it interesting, particularly while listening to this, and I don't know if it's because of the lower fidelity audio, but her vocals do kind of feel harp-like even at times. Not so much in the timbre, though a little bit, but there is just a blending between the two. They are both constantly moving all of the time. And I said I'm going to pair this back. Something that I noticed about Emily Autumn, who we checked out her album Opheliac a couple of Saturdays ago. I was talking with someone in the community about it after I had listened to the bonus tracks on my own, and it kind of dawned on me that a lot of Emily's vocal lines feel like they're written for a violin, and she just happened to sing them. And I just find that to be really interesting. You don't really see that too often, even in rock and metal, what we listen to most on the channel. Even if the lead singer also plays guitar, that phenomenon just doesn't happen too often. You don't really hear guitar riffs that feel like the vocal patterns. You don't hear guitar solos that feel like the vocal melodies in the choir, or sorry, in the chorus or something like that. It just doesn't happen very often. To me, it's a unique little phenomenon, and I'm always kind of blown away when I recognize it, and I wonder if they, the artists that do this, recognize it themselves, and if it's intentional or not. But yeah, so like as much Joanna Newsom as we've listened to, I still heard something new about her performance. Not even about this song in particular, but just her general performance. I heard something new about it today. Now, this is a bonkers performance. Like I had mentioned, there's just a lot of 16th notes in here constantly, all the time, going with little switch ups to 32nd notes to create bursts of speed, as if we needed to go any faster. But it's not just that. You gotta remember that she's singing 16th notes while playing different 16th notes, keeping both of these ideas separate, having bursts over here at different times, having slurred runs where she might start on a higher note instead of going ba ba ba, she might go ba, slur between them, have this very smooth transition between the notes that she doesn't have in the harp. Maybe she doesn't have that type of movement at all, descending vocals with ascending harp ideas. Having to keep both of these faster, intricate, complex ideas going at the same time, using both of your hands and your voice while remembering all of these words, and there are so many of them, and performing it like this. And it's not like the vocal part is a slouch either. She is doing some wild jumps and leaps, starting at like a middle tone and heading to something high before descending down. Those jumps are not easy, and she needs to be very precise because you don't have a chance to, overshoot it by a little bit and kind of slide down into it. By the time you've started that, you're moving to the next note already because of the speed of the delivery on all of this. It is complex, I think, both of these parts, and then to just do them together and make it look so effortless is mind-blowing. This I've said about Joanna Newsom before. But the other thing here too is some of the intricacies of what's going on. It's not just playing two different parts, but sometimes there's rhythmic differences there where she's creating I don't know if I'd call them polyrhythmic ideas, but they're towards the end. I think it was about minute 7 in this video. There was a part that just kind of caused me to like tweak my head a little bit and really listen into what's going on, because rhythmically it was bonkers. This is the kind of stuff you expect a good drummer to do on their drum kit, not, singing along with it, but creating polyrhythm within their own instrument. Not something you expect a vocalist and harpist to do. And it's just, again, it's another layer of complexity to the performance of this piece, and it blows me away. It really does. To me, Joanna is a poet. I think that's what I'm always going to see her primarily as. I know most people probably see her as a harpist, singer-songwriter, but to me, it's her poetry that really sets her apart from most of her contemporaries, and sort of the intricate precision to the words that she uses and the depth that they employ. And so sometimes it surprises me just how complex she is as a performer, too, on the musical side of her art. She is a wonderful vocalist, extremely talented. Her harp skills are amazing, and the fact that she does them both simultaneously, I think, is as mind-blowing as her poetry is. This side, I don't think she always engages with, which is why it kind of catches me off guard at times. Every song we've checked out just has bonkers lyrics to it, though. And that's, I think, is why that's what stands out to me. Which I think is a good thing. I don't think I ever want to be, in a sense, bored. I don't ever want to expect these wild performances out of her. I want that part to always be a surprise. I think that's what makes her music fun. And I mean, really, at the end of the day, Joanna is the full package. Composes amazing music, performs it. It's complex, it's difficult. She does it like it. I mean, it looks so easy for her. And she has a lot of depth to her poetry. She's the composer, she's the musician, she's the poet, all of it combined, and all of it done to such a high level. I wish I could have commented more about the song in particular. I mean, I did talk about the rhythmic component of it a little bit, but nothing really stood out to me on this, and it is just a vocal and an accompanying part. So there's not a lot of depth to it either. The other thing I can really touch on here is her heavy use of loop and rhythm. I just loop, I guess. She will take a single bar phrase and play it over and over and over and over without changing the pitch. We're not altering these notes to match a chord progression. They just kind of stick where they are. And she takes these moments, I think, to really lean into an idea. Maybe it works when you know what the words are for it to seem like a very short cycle. But I don't think that they pull me out of the song. Yeah, I don't think it's detrimental in any way, even if I don't understand the story, but it is something that pops out to me often, is that there's moments that feel more linear, and then there's moments that feel hyper repetitive, and she will just lean into them, sometimes adding contrast, increasing the intensity of the performance, maybe the volume, but most of the time, she just lets it be. This is something that I haven't heard a lot of in her music. She is folk adjacent, and folk music really enjoys small loops and focusing on atmosphere over everything else. You create a sound for the story to be told over. And so using like a 4-bar phrase or something repeated for 3, 4, 5 minutes straight is not out of it's not out of place in the realm of folk. But here I think she hyper focuses on stuff not just because of the trappings of the genre, but because she wants to force you to also focus in on what's going on in a moment too. And we actually hear a lot of that in here. I'm really hoping that the next video has higher quality audio to it, particularly because I want to hear more of the intricacies of the harmonies in here, but also because we're going to listen to a larger orchestration, more instruments, and I'd love to hear how all of that works together. I'm going to take a moment here to read the lyrics, then we'll go over that. I was going to say real quick, but Joanna Newsom's lyrics, that's never a real quick thing. But after that, we'll check out the larger arrangement, and then we'll wrap this video up. All right. This it does have some nice metaphor in it. The whole thing is actually a metaphor. It's figurative, but it's also a story in and of itself if you just want to take it at a surface level, and it's not super complex like some of her other works. You can take this right on surface level. It's about a monkey and a bear who are married. They live on a farm. The farmer treats them poorly, and one day the stable boy cries that some horses got loose. And so the monkey says, "Hey, bear, the fence is open, we should go." So they leave. However, this is a dancing bear. They wear a dress, a tutu probably of some sort, and they dance for money. For the farmer, though, of course. But Monkey says, hey, we're going to need money out there in the real world. Once we get, to our destination somewhere in that direction, you don't have to do this anymore, but can you keep the dress on and we'll keep dancing and we'll get money that way. And the bear says, of course. So they head out. The bear dancing, them getting money. And anytime the bear wants to do something, take a break for some tea, the monkey belittles them. Tells them we can't do what you want to do. We got to keep doing what I want to do. Usually coming up with some excuse that justifies why they can't do what bear wants. In the end of the story, at night, bear is seen going to a spring, and one of the animals tells the monkey, hey, your bear is sneaking out and going to this spring. And the monkey gets a little upset, a little worried about this, but tells himself it's fine. As the lyrics state, when she comes back, she'll be bursting with pride, and then I'll jump up saying, you've been rolling in muck, you smell of garbage and grime. Trying to take away what little joy Bear has. We shift the perspective over to Bear in the spring, though, and we see her shed all of herself, including, as it states, her coat, her being. Holding it up, seeing how threadbare it is, full of holes needing mending. She decides here that she is most comfortable without it. And in the only instance of really figurative language where it transcends its more straightforward language and approaches strict metaphor, she leaves herself behind and becomes bear without bear. The next layer of metaphor on this is the Ursa Major constellation. There's a lot of allusions to this. The shape of it is described in a couple of places. The bear's name is Ursula. It brings in the British, I believe, description. Instead of Ursa Major, it's the plow. That idea of plowing comes into this. There is so many layers that incorporate the constellation, its placement, its shape, its design, all of it into the story. But of course, there's also the next layer, which is about an abusive relationship. That it wasn't the farmer or possibly their status in society that kept them down exclusively, and that even after leaving the farm, the bear was still left leashed to the monkey now instead of the farmer. And of course, any joys that the woman had in this story were torn away from her, either belittled, talked down upon, or, as we were going to see at the end, if the story had continued and she had gone back to the camp, the monkey was going to make fun of her for having gone to the spring and tell her that she was worse off for doing it. These are all pretty typical manipulation tactics for abusive partners. And I think it's interesting to see this song exist on so many levels. It is a pretty simple, sort of children's-esque parable, using animals to tell a story of morality and to, I guess not, I mean, there is a moral to this, but it's less of a moral and more of a way of recognizing a situation. Told through the lens of animals, you might see something similar in real life and say, oh, that reminds me of the monkey and the bear. It's really cool how it works on that level, but also taking it to the next level of incorporating so many components of the constellation into it, and then, of course, the true metaphor of abusive relationships. And I didn't go over everything. As I mentioned, there's a lot of lyrics to this. There's, I don't know, 15, 16 stanzas, and very few of them are short. There's a lot to this. If you're curious about any of the details of this, I highly suggest going and checking out the lyrics on genius.com or joannanewsomlyrics.com if you want to get a taste for all of this. It is very eloquently written. And there's a lot of interesting, knowledgeable components to it. As I mentioned at the beginning, the stable boy had said that the horses had gotten loose, but it also says that they got grass sickness and they'll flounder, they'll faint, and they'll die. Apparently, this is all like real farmland vocabulary. If you've ever raised horses, like grass sickness is a real thing, and so is floundering. Like, I don't know any of this. It's interesting to see where her areas of knowledge are, or maybe areas where she might have had to seek out knowledge just in order to incorporate it in here. I don't know if she knew all of this vocabulary prior to writing this, but if she didn't, she went out of her way to learn about it to give an authenticity to the story. And that's just the framework. That's not even the story of the monkey or the bear yet. This is just setting the story up of the gates being open. This could have been anything, and instead she went to the lengths to ensure that there is this farmhand authenticity to it. I think that's pretty cool. And, you know, the more I think about it, some of the other songs we've listened to, the topics vary quite a bit. They're usually about some sort of element of nature. Usually it's water or animals or sea creatures, all sorts of stuff. But there's always an extensive knowledge to it, a way of incorporating not just a cursory idea of the topic and using it as a platform for the metaphor, but to actually dive into that topic as well. Like I said, she is a phenomenal poet, and to me, it will always be what I remember her most as. Not to diminish any of her musical components and performance and skills and chops, which she has those as well, but it's her poetry that stands out to me and elevates her above her contemporaries. All right, we're going to move into the second performance here. I do have a little bit of context for this. The requester actually edited this together using a high-quality soundboard recording of a 2006 performance at the Bottle Tree Cafe in Alabama, and used footage from a performance 10 nights earlier in Philadelphia and merged them together to create something that hopefully has really great audio and showcases the performance as well. The only difference is that this video does not have the banjo player Kevin Baker in it. They were absent for the performance. However, they are present in the audio mix. This band arrangement is based on the orchestral arrangements made by Van Dyke Parks for Newsom's 2006 LP titled Ease. So, I'm excited about this. I really am. This is what I'm hoping for: higher quality and denser layers. I do like Joanna's solo work, just her vocals and her harp. It always impresses me, but I think when I think of the songs that have really impacted me musically, it's the denser arrangements. So I'm looking forward to how this song is expanded. Would that be the description of it? Do you think it started out as a solo piece, then they expanded it, or that it started out as a full orchestral, not a fully instrumental piece, a larger orchestration, that's the word, and then was stripped down to the solo harp idea for that one performance? Anyways, let's dive into this, see what's going on with this performance of Monkey and Bear.
Down in the green hay, where monkey and bear usually lay, they woke from a stable boy's cry. Said, someone come quick, the horses got loose, got grass sick. They'll founder, faint, they'll die. What is now known by the sorrel and the roan, by the chestnut and the bay and the gelding gray, it is stay by the gate that you are given, and remain in your place for your season, and had the overfed it, but listen.
Some interesting rhythmic phrasing to this.
Did you hear that bear? Said monkey, will get out of your fair and square. They left the gate open wide. So, my bride, here is my hand, where is your paw?
So this is a clear 4/4, but leading up to this section, I honestly had no idea.
My heart is a furnace.
Even that.
A love that's just an earnest. Now you know that we must unlearn this. Allegiance to a life of service, and no longer answer to that wordless monger, nor be his accomplice. The charlatan with
Okay, so it's still 4/4. She just shifts everything a half a beat later for 2 bars.
now keep while still within the borders of the land that man is girded, all double bolted and tight fisted, until we reach the open country, steeped in milk and honey. Will you keep your fancy clothes on for me? Can you bear a little longer to wear that leash? My love, I swear by the air I breathe, sooner or later you'll bear your teeth. But for now, dance, darling. Come on, will you dance, my darling? Oh, darling, there's a place for us. Can we go before I turn to dust? Oh, my darling, there's a
Yeah.
place for us.
The offbeat danciness of it.
Oh, darling, come on, will you dance, my darling? Oh, the hills are groaning with excess, like a terrible, ceaseless, leaping sad. Oh, my darling, we will get there yet. They drew past the guards, past the coops and the fields and the farmyards, all night till finally the space they gained grew much farther in the stone that they threw. Tomorrow
It's so interesting. I would love to see the sheet music for this.
but walk a little faster and don't look backwards. Your feast is to the east, which
It's
lies
almost
into the
as
past.
if she made up
The blackbirds here to whistling, they
the
rise
vocal
and
melody on the go, like improv'd it, and then tried to create something that would go along with it. there's really odd rhythmic changes.
Though cast in plaster, our Ursula's heart beat faster than monkeys ever will. But still, they had got to pay the bills, hadn't they? That is what the monkeys say. So, with the courage of a clown or a cur or a kite jerking tight at its tether, in her dun brown gown of fur and a jerkin of swan's down and leather, there would sway on her hind legs the organ would grind dregs of song for the pleasure of the children who'd shriek, throwing coins at her feet, then recoiling in terror, sing, dance, darling. Come on, will you dance, my darling, oh darling, there's a place for us, can we go before I turn to dust, oh, my darling, there's a place for us. Oh,
All right. Hmm. I think I had a different idea in mind. I think if I had heard the song in isolation, without any lead up into it, I might have been a bit more receptive to it. But it ended up being like 70% just the solo harp accompaniment. We did have, what is that? Is that an accordion? No, what is it? That's it's like an accordion, but it has a piano part on it. That's not what accordion is it? Anyways, we had that instrument over on the side, providing harmonic movement underneath most of the song, but otherwise it was mostly the Joanna show, like the other one was. We really only got the expanded instrumentation in the final minute or so, where we had the fast-picked banjo. It wasn't a banjo. What was that? It was a small lute of some sort. Um, but it seemed like it was multi-stringed, like a what is that called? Why can't I think of the instrument? Where it has like two strings per string area. Um, I think banjos do it too. It's not what I'm thinking of at the top of my head. Anyways, we had that going on over there with the constant fast strumming and a very light tom, snare, and bass kick idea on the drums. The only place that we really saw much expansion was harmonically with the vocal harmonies, which I thought was a nice touch. And all of this seeks to elevate one specific moment of the song, which I do think is pretty cool. We elevate the ending, where the bear is in the spring, cleansing themselves and pulling off all of the things that weigh them down, including their coat, and transcending from there. I think it is very cool that we bring in all these elements and make this a big moment musically. Joanna tries to do this in the other song with her heavier attacks on the harp and the more aggressive vocal work, trying to capture the same vibe with intensity and volume. It doesn't. It doesn't quite come across as strong as it does here. So I do like how that comes together, and it does seek to provide importance to or import to this section of the song, which makes sense. A majority of this song lyrically is told from the perspective of the monkey and how it controls the bear. And in this moment, we have a disembodied narrator describing what the bear is doing in isolation, not through a perspective of wanting to control it, but simply to showcase what the bear does. An unbiased narration. It is a big moment for the song lyrically, and I like how the music in this version embellishes that and makes it feel large. It is an impactful part of the song, of the story, I should say. And I like having all the vocals here, of having the drums, of having the lute instrument, all of this coming together to say, look, this is major, this is big. That's pretty cool. But aside from that, I think I kind of like the solo version better. I'm not sure that the drums add much to the song for me. The harmonies are neat, but again, not something that I think adds too much. And the rest of the instruments don't really show up very much at all here. So, I don't know, I am kind of torn. I don't think either one is better than the other, but I think if I was going to go for majority, the solo work I think is better a majority of the time. It's just the ending that this one captures a lot better. Now, I did get to hear her composition on this one. On the one hand, it's very Joanna Newsom. We've checked out another song of hers that was primarily her and a harp, although I think we also had like a guitar player. It was a couple of instruments, but it was primarily her and the harp. Actually, we have listened to one that was just her and the harp, and it absolutely blew me away. What, it was Leaving the City, wasn't it? I think it was. That one was just bonkers. But musically, I don't hear too much different on the harmonic palette between something like Leaving the City and maybe it was Colleen. No, Colleen was the one that we saw with the expanded group. Yeah, because that was Joanna Newsom and the E Street Band. All right. So yeah, it must have been Leaving the City then. I don't hear a lot of difference harmonically between a lot of her work, though. The expanded orchestration on something like Divers showcases a very different coloring to her composition, but when she's writing something like this, that to me primarily feels like it's her and a harp and then some accompanying ideas, more so than writing something that is totally layered from start to finish. It all kind of blurs together into, like I said, something that feels a bit classically folk, a little mix of classical music, a little dash of Renaissance with, folk Americana, you know. And I think that's an interesting middle point too for her work. I mean, right there at the end, I think this showcases it very clearly and plainly. You can hear some parts in there that feel very folky, something that you would hear behind a local folklore story that's been turned into a song. But there's passages in there, 8, 10 notes in a row that certainly move away from that and introduce some more complex harmonic ideas, something that we would find in classical more often than folk. And then other moments, as I mentioned, kind of feel very childlike, whimsy to it. That to me, mixed with the idea of this being a sort of parable told through the eyes of animals, feels very much like a children's lullaby at times. And I think the masterful thing is that there isn't any moment in this song where I would point to and say, yes, that's a classical moment. This is a folk passage. That's more of a lullaby. And, these three things are distinct. She interweaves them so effortlessly. And it creates a specific character, I think, to her composition that I've never really been able to put into words before. I don't think I would get her confused with another harp player. Even without the vocals, which she has a very unique timbre and characteristic to her vocal, um, I think even just if you played some harp for me, I I don't know that I'd be able to tell you everyone, but I could definitely say that's Joanna Newsom or that's not Joanna Newsom, particularly if we were working within her compositions versus not her compositions. I don't think there's anything about her performance that would stand out to me. I don't think there's anything about her guitar, her harp tone, about the materials she uses, what type of strings she has. All of that feels like any other harpist, but the composition I think feels very Joanna Newsom. And I think it's the combination of these three elements. And again, it's the interweaving of them that makes it stand out. It creates something that often feels heavy and weighty with a levity to it, wanting you to know that this is serious, but that it isn't depressing. It's still good, funnish to listen to. Nothing in the music of this makes me feel sad, which could kind of run against what's being said. This is a very dark tale about a very serious topic, and yet the music is light, even whimsical at times. There's even in that expanded version a dancey idea where I think it was the lute player came in with offbeat accents for a little bit that kind of gave it a bit of a dancey vibe. It is easy to listen to, which, like I said, feels kind of counter to the story being told, but I think that it works really well. It creates almost a story time palette to the whole thing. The music isn't there to embellish the story's emotions or anything like that. The music is there to simply be a platform for the story. In a sense, this song, the part played on the harp and the instruments and all of that, could be anything. It didn't necessarily have to be this. I don't see a large connection between the two pieces. It's not like It's not like grunge music, which feels heavy and sad and angsty, and usually the lyrics are those too. This is more of a frame for a painting. You definitely want to pick one that matches your artwork, but the artwork was sort of made first and the frame embellishes on it. It isn't really a part of it. And that's what the music feels like to me with the lyrics. It creates the right vibe, the right feeling for this sort of childlike story to be told. It has this folkish component to it, but it doesn't add to any of the emotional depth of the song, not generally. It ends up working very well. The other thing I picked up on this version, though, with the clearer production, is what are these rhythms? Seriously, the first minute is tough to keep up with. If I had to guess right this minute, I'd say the whole song is in 4/4. But she uses some very interesting phrasing on that. I believe many parts of the beginning of the song are alternating groups of 7/8 and 9/8. Of course, that adds up to 16/8, which is, it fits within the realm of 4/4, since the 16 is divisible by 4, but it never quite feels right. There's always something about it that feels off kilter. It's, I don't know, starting the next phrase on the and of 8 instead of beat 1, or extending an idea out just another beat long than it should have been. Maybe a half a beat longer than it should have been. It's just a lot of off kilter rhythmic ideas. She'll take pauses where you expect downbeats, and it makes it really difficult to follow along with the song up until maybe the 3 minute mark, 4 minute mark, about halfway into the song, I guess, yeah, when she begins to emphasize downbeats more consistently. And then, of course, on this version, we end up getting the bass kick downbeat after like minute 5 or 6 throughout the rest of the song. So it's very clearly 4/4 from that point on. But that opening is wild, and I had completely forgotten about it last time, last analysis bit. It kind of blows my mind the way that she feels rhythm. As I mentioned, it almost feels haphazardly placed at times, not there to create a sense of flow or fluidity, but simply to accommodate the words themselves. When I think about what she's saying, the places where she takes breaths or introduces pauses kind of makes sense from a bit of a, not prose, but speech. It almost feels like she's telling a story. You know those things, right? This is okay. Okay. You ever seen one of those YouTube videos where they'll take a meme or I don't know, a speech or something, and some drummer will put a drum track behind it, or a guitarist will put some metal music behind it or something like that, and the music doesn't really have a sense of musical flow to it because it's following the rhythms and cadence of the words themselves, the speech, the speaking, which isn't usually any sort of rhythmic flow to that. There are rhythmic elements to speech, sure, but it's not designed to fit inside of a rigid grid. And so the music ends up feeling a bit more chaotic because of that. It feels more fluid and adventurous, where we might stick with a rhythm for 2 or 3 beats, but because the person speaking changes their cadence or rhythm, the drummer is now also changing their rhythm to a different passage entirely, a different tempo, a different time signature, a different polymeter to fit within that. And that's exactly what the opening of this song feels like. Granted, she is singing, but the fluidity of when we sing, when we have breaks where the pauses come in, feel closer to speech, which feels really weird in the realm of music. And now, yeah, that's exactly what the opening of this sounds like. And I'm curious why we started that way, if the song eventually and gradually shifts to something more rigid. Is I mean, the only thing I can think from this, I don't know how intentional this might be, but it's the continuing recognizing of the situation that the bear is in. Things are off kilter because they don't recognize they're in an abusive relationship. But as we go further into the story, they begin to see some of the signs, and by the end of it, they have shed their skin. Everything that makes them tied to the monkey and have transcended, moving into something else, getting away from this relationship entirely. There's nothing in the text, I think, that supports the bear's mentality of this, recognizing some of these signs. But I think that's also because the story actively refuses to give the perspective of the bear at all, which is a genius decision to do. Victims in these situations are they're stripped of their narrative, of their identity, of their agency. So doing the same thing to this character in the story, I think, is a pretty cool parallel. But it also means that I don't know if this reading is accurate or not. It's the only thing I can see that might change gradually over the course of the story, though. In a positive way, moving from something unsettling or impossible to, not impossible, more difficult to understand, to something that is more easily digestible. In a sense, moving from something a bit more chaotic to something more ordered. Those are my thoughts. Joanna Newsom's Monkey and Bear. What did you think of this song, these renditions of it? Do you have your own thoughts or perspectives or opinion on any of this? Do you need to correct me on anything that I said or add on to things that I said? Anything that you'd like to add to the conversation with, put it down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, ways to submit your own special selections, a link to the Discord server. I think I said that already. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff there. Go check it out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.